Okay, so Eric, tell us your name and who you work for.
Eric Johnson with FMC Corporation.
Perfect. Now, you've been in the industry for a while. Tell me how you got your start.
So growing up, Dad worked for Chevron Chemical Company over in Ocoee. He was a field development specialist and basically was responsible for the lower 48. And he was responsible for bringing difolitan, which was a foliar fungicide, to market, and orthene, which was an insecticide. Those were two of the big projects that he worked on when he was at Chevron. And so I would go with him occasionally to the research station and help him out and kind of follow him around and see what was going on. And we also had 25 to 50 acres of grove kind of spread out over North Lake County. And so I just kind of grew up in the industry and was out helping Dad and doing things like that.
Who were some of the people you knew at the time then?
So up in North Lake County, some of the folks that were close with our family was John Jackson, who of course was the extension agent up there. I grew up playing ball with one of his sons and hang out on the lake with them and going water skiing and those kinds of things. James Simpson, who was a big landowner up there. His son was a year behind me, Jamie Simpson, and they lived right around the corner from us, and so we had a grove that kind of backed right up to theirs, and used to spend a lot of time, pounding sod and walking through the groves and just being out in the groves out there, you'd kind of help each other out. If you're mowing and you see something, you'd kind of go over and take note and say, hey, you got some irrigation that's out of control, and just help each other out.
Now, was is this the Jim Simpson that's in the Hall of Fame? Anita Simpson was his wife?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes. So they lived on the corner of 441 and 44B in Eustis, Mount Dora, so right on the corner there.
And he was quite an innovator, wasn't he?
He was. I didn't know as much about his business at that time. I knew that he was a grove owner and had quite a lot of land around there. So
I don't remember enough to even ask questions about it. So,
yeah.
But I never met him because he had passed by the time he went into the Hall of Fame. And
yes.
But Anita's on our board now, so I was just,
staying active.
Yes, very, absolutely.
So then Nick Farina was another one. He was up in Umatilla. He was a very good cooperator for Dad when he became a consultant. And so he'd always let Dad come into his groves and do new studies to get new pesticides registered and things like that. And so I knew him through Dad as well. And I guess he passed probably 3 or 4 years ago now too.
Right.
So, yep.
I remember John telling a story about how he had gone and would pick up at auction different pieces of packing house equipment, and over the course of 2 or 3 years, from various auctions, he pieced together the entire packing house that they had.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, and so continuing in how I got into the industry as well, when I was out of high school, I went to work for Chevron as a field biologist. So basically I was a sweat laborer. I was the guy that was digging the ditches and running the tractors and doing all that kind of stuff. I really enjoyed the work. I enjoyed doing a lot of the research and those kinds of things out there. And that's what, after I guess 2.5 years, sent me back to college and ended up getting a degree in marine biology at West Florida, and then came to Florida and got my master's and worked on my PhD in agronomy as a weed scientist. And so that kind of comes full circle how I got into this.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So in terms of the people that you've met and the things that you've done, how has it changed over the years since you first started and since you watched your dad,
Well, I mean, obviously with citrus, that's the biggest thing is watching coming down 27 when I was coming home from school. About the time you get to Ocala in March, you'd start smelling the orange blossoms.
Right.
And,
Just
obviously, yeah, and you'd get to 27 and it's just that beautiful, rolling hills coming into Groveland and Claremont with nothing but citrus as far as you can see.
Right.
Obviously, we've lost acres. We've got issues with greening. We had, a couple of different scares with canker and some things like that. And so just the way the business has changed, or the way it's changed for me, is it used to be that dream that you wanted about 120, 140 acres when you were about 40 years old, and you were going to retire on that and just live on that 120, 140 acres. Now, if you don't have 15,000, you can't make any money on it. And even then, it's managed so tightly that it's just very difficult to see the business in it. And so it's just very disconcerting and a little depressing sometimes when you kind of see where the state of the industry is. But people still keep going to work, they still keep getting after it, and I think this is one of those that, you know, you got to hit the bottom before you can start coming back up. And so I think we're at that point, we're going to start seeing some innovations and start seeing some positive turns, and, you know, we'll get this thing rolling again.
I think so. I mean, that's been the industry's. They've done that every time they've hit bottom. They just keep
Yes.
going.
Yeah, whether it's the freezes in the 80s, canker eradication in the 90s,
Yep.
you know, tristasia and some other diseases, or, you know, greening now, and it's just the positivity of the people that are involved and the resilience, you know.
I think that's
it's amazing.
indicative just of farmers in general. I
Yes.
think because it's a gamble. I think it was Mr. McLean that said it yesterday. He goes, "Farming's a gamble, so you
Yes.
might as well, you know, take the risk."
If you win 3 out of 5 years, you've won.
Right, absolutely.
So,
So speaking of some of the other people in the industry, who were some of your mentors?
earlier on, trying to think of a couple of guys. Ken Music was a guy that when I was in grad school, he was working at American Cyanamid, and he taught me a lot about how to approach people and how to get research done and things like that. I just really appreciated the way he kind of came to it. While I was working at Chevron, Danny Rogers was a big researcher, and he just retired from Valent after 35 or 40 years, I think,
Okay.
as a senior vice president.
Wow.
And so I liked his approach to doing things. He could be a little rough, but he was just straight to the point. And, you know, people want the truth. They, you know, don't need sugarcoating. Just tell me what you know,
Rip
and
the
let's get
Band-Aid.
on with it. That's right. Trying to think of some other influential people. In citrus, you know, those are probably some of the key ones. Now, in some of the other ag, of course, my major professor when I was in grad school, Don Schilling, he said, you know, this agriculture thing is all about relationship and being
true.
honest with people. And, you know, if you don't know the answer, you don't fake it. You go find out the answer and you get back to people.
Right.
So
That's a good piece of advice for anything.
That's right.
That's wonderful.
that's right.
So, in terms of the whole agrochemical industry, how has that changed since you've started in it? I mean,
Things have become a little bit more corporate. It used to be that there was a lot of relationships and smaller acres, and you could go out and talk with smaller growers. Now a lot of it has gotten tightened up, and you've got big caretakers and fewer people that you can have a chance to influence. I think it's gotten a lot more professional, because it used to be kind of like the Wild West in Florida when you were selling ag chemicals, and it's, you know, whoever was the slickest and the fastest got the business. You know, so I think that now it's really more about professionalism and how you treat that customer.
is it harder to get research approved and like through FDA? Have things gotten so many hurdles to jump through that it's almost impossible to get things
Yeah,
to market? Or
The regulatory is still definitely a big aspect, you know, and EPA a lot of times seems to have a moving target. So you submit a package, then they want something else, and then they want something else. Then when you get that done, then you go to FDAX, and FDAX usually is pretty good. If EPA has approved it, they will look at it, they'll review it, and usually will put their stamp of approval on it. I think that process, at least in my career, has always been very similar.
okay.
So I haven't seen a lot of change there.
Now with HLB, how has that affected your particular? I mean, everybody's trying to find the magic bullet for that. How
Right.
have you guys been approaching it?
With FMC, we've got several key products that play in the HLB arena for helping control the Asian citrus psyllid. Also leaf miner for canker.
Right.
So we've got Exeril, which is a phenomenal product. It was kind of a game changer because of its chemistry. We also had some broader spectrum chemistries, Mustang Max, that were used in a lot of the Chima sprays. And so FMC has been in the right spot at the right time with a lot of this to be able to provide solutions to kind of help keep moving through the HLB greening era.
Okay. I know that's just decimated the industry. It's really tough to watch.
Yes,
You know, it is.
absolutely.
With that said, we touched on the fact that, you know, the citrus industry, the agriculture industry, they're all farmers. They just keep carrying on. it's the families that have generational families.
Yes.
There's so many of those involved that in this industry. How have you seen that dynamic change as they've had to move out of farming?
Yeah, it's you look at land values and things like that versus what you can make on that acre growing a crop. The sustainability for a smaller grower, I just don't think is the same as it was 20 years ago.
Right.
The input costs have doubled, tripled, and especially right now with high fertilizer prices, high fuel prices, when a developer comes to somebody and says, hey, we want to buy 150 acres and we're going to give you $100,000 an acre, that's pretty hard for that family where, maybe 2 or 3 of the siblings are not on the farm. So that's a pretty easy decision for them to say, well, we're going to sell off and we're going to take the money. It's kind of heartbreaking that that's the way things are going, but it's the family's decision to do what they want to do, and if they're going to provide for their family, then that's okay.
Right. Yeah, I didn't even touch on the supply chain issues and how that's affected the industry at all.
Yes.
I mean, and in your business, that would definitely have been an impact.
Absolutely.
How's that happen?
Timeliness of being able to deliver product. It used to be we'd have 2-3 week lead times on delivering product, and you could always count on it being there. Now it's sometimes 2 and 3 months, and you get to that 2 and 3 months out, and then all of a sudden the date for delivery has changed again. And so it's a real moving target, and it's not just citrus. It's everything from golf balls to baseball bats to whatever it is.
Right.
There's some sort of supply constraint, and so it's not just indicative of the ag chem market or whatever. It's just a worldwide issue right now, and hopefully that'll get squared away soon and take one of those straws off the camel's back, so we're not as heavily loaded trying to get through this.
It would be nice.
Yes.
In terms of the growers getting their supplies, though, and how is that? Have you seen a major problem with their production practices because of it?
There's usually 5 or 6 solutions to any problem they've got.
Okay.
So there's usually their A solution. Sometimes they have to go down to C or D, to be able to get their problem solved. But there's a lot of flexibility, and they've got things that they can do. It's just disappointing when you can't provide your solution to them when they're kind of counting on you.
Right.
So.
What about organics and some of the people moving to organic farming? How has that impacted your side of the equation?
FMC does not play a whole lot in the organics. We do have a couple of specialty things that go in there. That hasn't really impacted me a whole lot. I'm still an advisor to some folks that are doing some organics and tell them some things that they can use and those kinds of things. So, but that's a very minor part of my particular business.
Perfect. So what are some of the players that we should talk about and bring up names just so we've got them on record?
As far as what?
As far as the citrus industry and who you've worked with.
So Jim Snively at Southern Gardens, now U.S. Sugar. His dad is a very good friend of my father's, and so I've known Jim for quite a long time. Danny Sutton with Alico is absolutely a major influence. He's somebody that we need to keep working with and whatnot. Steve Farr at Ben Hill Griffin has been an innovator. He did a lot of the original Timic work when that was being originally labeled.
I didn't realize that.
He was one of the first guys that volunteered to let people come in and do trials. And so Dad did a bunch of work with him back in
80s?
late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
And I helped do some of that work as well.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah,
Okay.
he was always been an innovator and looking for the next thing. So those are probably 3 of the most important guys that I can think of. Then we've got some younger people like Cody Lassinger at CCLP that's come on, and he's got some really unique ideas on the way he wants to handle things, and so he's kind of that next generation.
What kind of uniqueness? What makes
He's
it?
really embraced a lot of the new technology on digital mapping and being able to look and do precision ag in citrus, and so he's just I've seen some of the stuff that he's done that I can't really talk about.
Right.
But he is just an innovator, and he's going to help provide some solutions to get us through this.
Oh wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And you said I didn't mean to interrupt, but I didn't.
No.
Yeah. So what were some? You said there was a couple of other younger ones.
No, there are some younger ones, but he's just one that really stands out.
Okay. Okay, great. Anything else that we should know about that you would want to touch on?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay, well, thank you for being here today. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.